Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I think we'll be discussing a very interesting topic with this esteemed panel. Just to set context, I think medicine is a very rapidly evolving field with new lines of treatment and drugs emerging very fast, especially with most life sciences companies investing heavily in R&D as well as adapting new age technologies in drug discovery. It is very important for companies to educate HCPs of such new therapies to enable them to provide their patients with the best available and possible care. However, there has always been a struggle for companies and MRs to gain adequate access or time from HCPs to enable them to provide the necessary knowledge and information for these medical advancements. The ongoing pandemic had only amplified this problem, as now MRs were not able to physically visit and interact with HCPs for a long period of time. Owing to this problem, companies were quick to adapt to the digital ways to enable them to continue to interact with medical practitioners. Accordingly, it's very timely for ETA Health World to set up this discussion with such an esteemed panel to discuss the topic going beyond doctor visits with quality medical content. I'm joined on this esteemed panel by Dr. Vikas Gupta, Head India Business Cipla, Manish Bajaj, Cluster Head, Dr. Reddy's, Ruchi Tushir, VP and GM, Walter Kluwer, GGM India, Catherine Wolfe, EVP and President, Walter Kluwer's Global Growth Markets. Thank you, everybody. And it's my esteemed pleasure and honor to moderate this panel. And I would like to open this session with my first question to Dr. Vikas. To begin with, I would like to ask you, why is it important to engage with doctors beyond their in-clinic visits?
Thanks, Rajeev, first of all, for inviting me and giving me this opportunity. See, as you rightly mentioned, the whole healthcare, I would say, ecosystem is evolving. Medicine as a science is ever evolving science, and the pace at which it's changing in the last few years has been very rapid. The focus has not been only on selling a product or a drug. It's about offering something that we can play a role as a part of this whole healthcare service network. How can we partner with the healthcare practitioners and ensure that we offer better patient care? So I guess that's the whole transition that the industry is viewing. And as that happens, the modes and the ways and the means of engagement are also changing. So perhaps as more and more therapies are coming to surface, there is a very important need to be a partner and offer a lot of services that can help the healthcare practitioner, to counsel the patients, to look at the best option for the patients, continuously keep bringing the advancements that's happening across the globe for management of diseases. And that's why the limited time that you will have inside the clinic, will not be sufficient for offering something that can lead to a better patient care. So I guess the need for industry to network and to engage, with the customers is more than before. And as the therapies, as the science would keep evolving, as part of the whole healthcare network, it becomes very, very important that we figure out mechanisms and ways in which we can engage with the healthcare practitioners, both inside as well as outside of the normal clinic time.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. I think really well said. I think it's really apt. And as I said, I come from a family of doctors myself. My parents are doctors. So growing up, I've spent enough time at the clinic to complete my studies, help my mom, dispensing medicines as well. And I've also interacted with a few MRs down the way, but obviously to keep the jokes aside. But as you rightly said, medicine is evolving and it is definitely important. And it's always a tussle between time for patient care vis-a-vis and giving the time to MR, and that tussle will always be there. So I think very rightly put, and I think we need to find avenues. Manish, if you would like to add, I think, onto this chain of thought.
Yeah, I think very well said, Vikas. Only thing I would add, just from a marketing standpoint, I think we are in the attention economy. Wherever there is attention, there should be marketing. So I think in the past, we used to carry on our knowledge discussions, brand discussions in conferences, journals, books. And now the attention is shifting to the various screens, right? From cell phones to laptops. So I think from the humble WhatsApp to emails, to the doctor network platforms, to social media platforms, to EMR consultation platforms, to teleconsultation platforms. These are all the avenues where through digital, the access to get to the doctors and engage them in scientific conversation or even marketing or branding related conversation.
Right, Manish. Thank you so much. I think moving on that chain of thought, I think Catherine, I think just in continuation to what Manish just referred to, it'd be good to get your views in terms of what are the different ways to engage with doctors meaningfully. I think that you are seeing, and what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Rajeev. Really happy to be part of this panel. And I agree very much with Manish and Dr. Vikas that the pharma companies in India play a very important role. We know from the doctors in helping them keep up with new changes and have resources that frankly, many of them might not otherwise be able to afford or even have time to look for, given how busy they tend to be. At Wolters Kluwer, we work with doctors globally. And before this role, I actually ran part of our health business, including our journal and education businesses. One of the things we found is that it's really best to start when the doctors are students, to really get them to learn about the purpose of the different sources of information, whether journals or books or clinical decision support, which synthesizes, the best practices to help with diagnosis and treatment, to really learn about those tools, what are their pros and cons, and when to use them, which really helps reinforce the value of these tools to improve the students' effectiveness. And when they become doctors as well, their effectiveness as practicing doctors. Also, addressing them as students helps create the habit of using these tools. And one thing also in school is the importance of incorporating this into the curriculum. So really helping the faculty have access to these tools and working with them, to make them very easy to use in their teaching, and obviously they're looking for high quality tools that fit with the curriculum of India, and also, support in adopting them into their lectures. So at Wolters Kluwer, we have print and digital books. We publish many of the world's leading journals. We have what I think was the first ever clinical decision support tool in UpToDate. And we are constantly evolving those, including, as I think Manish mentioned, moving to digital. And one really key point is there are just hundreds and hundreds of articles published every year on medical research, and no one has time to keep up with all of them, even if in their own specialty. So it's really important that doctors keep up with these best practices that come through. And also sometimes the advice is to stop doing something they might have learned that could have been discovered to be harmful. So it's extremely important to engage with them, to really develop this habit. And, I think it just really reinforces the importance of engaging with doctors throughout their careers to help them keep up with these best practices to keep delivering quality care.
Very rightly said, Catherine. I think starting early with students itself probably imbibe certain of these principles as they move forward into a more complex and a demanding world. Very rightly put across. I think, Ruchi, do you have anything else to add to these chain of thoughts?
Thanks, Rajeev. And again, I'll just echo the sentiment. I'm really glad to be part of this panel. A lot of learnings I'm sure that all of us will carry back home. But just to add to what Kathy said, this is really about a journey. And it's about, exposing our potential next generation doctors to content that can really shape their future and shape the future of the country as well, because it's all about what kind of care are we able to provide to the masses at large. And that journey really starts early on when they're just about students. And then you continue, exposing the entire doctors fraternity to content which can really make them be up to date, be relevant, and be aware of changes that's happening in the medicine as an industry. I mean, pandemic was a great example here. Not the best example to quote always, but when Corona came, doctors were at loss to understand how to deal with this. It was happening at some country. It had impact in different country. How do you really leverage the learnings from each other, and evidence based, most importantly, because it's just not about an anecdotal learning, but it is about an evidence based learning, which can make them feel a lot more confident and comfortable the way they're going to actually deliver the patient care. So, absolutely concur with what I've heard from the panelists here. Yes.
Thank you, Ruchi. I think moving on, I think we've heard some very good inputs, and I think the entire journey, I think what we've all seen, how we've evolved over the last, say, 24 months now or 25 months in terms of the digital journey. So, Manish, I think I just wanted to get your views in terms of how digital channels have altered the approach towards engaging with doctors, and how are pharma marketeers evolving in this space, particularly when it comes to medical content and engagement with doctors beyond visits.
Good point, Rajeev. I think there's been a big change fueled by the pandemic. And I would say from a pharma company, there are like maybe three big areas that we have been working on. One is at a people level, right? So how do we train our pharma marketeers to be now up to date with all the tools that are available in front of them, the physical tools as well as all the possible digital tools, and which meant, I think, a very good amount of training of all our entire marketing team. The second piece is around platforms. All of us now figure out, I think there are platforms that we could build internally. There are platforms we could leverage externally as well. One from a knowledge standpoint, and the other piece around dissemination of the knowledge. So I'm sure most companies got on to building their own email marketing platforms, their own content dissemination platforms, while also working with various associations and external partners to get the knowledge dissemination and on the digital side. The third piece is around process, which also meant, I think previously the industry was working on the physical paradigm. Now I think integrating this digital paradigm into our therapy plans, into our brand plans, so to say. I think the cornerstone documents that all our marketers work on. How do we get the physical and the digital elements embedded into the planning exercise? That has been a big change in how we have evolved our processes. So quite some changes, and I'm sure many of these are now become a part of life for pharma marketers.
Very rightly put, Manish. I think the PPT, as you call it, people, process, and technology, I think are core to any fundamental process or change. I think definitely these are the three elements which needed to be addressed to move towards this journey. Dr. Vikas, I think if any additional views in terms of how have digital channels altered your interaction with the HCPs?
Sure. So I mean, I totally concur with what points Manish brought to the table. What I would add is that, like pandemic changed a lot of industries, it was a change by and large in the society where the adoption of digital is going up. I was just reading somewhere a few days ago that how the amount of data that we are consuming as Indians, the number of GBs, how that graph has went up in the last few years. So pharma industry is no different, so it's very natural for us to ride that wave. I guess we learned that lesson a little late, and it took a pandemic as an event for us to get that additional push, but we are catching up as an industry, I would say. What has happened is we've become more focused. The power of digital is that you can customize your messages. You can be very, very focused on the customer. You can save a lot of time. You can save a lot of travel. Today, the adoption of digital as a tool both at the customer end as well as at the organizations and the whole ecosystem, that has evolved, has helped us reaching out to each other much faster, much more focused, and I would say even targeted. So the customization of message, the customization of approach, the convenience that it brings is something that is really helping the whole industry adopting it even at a faster pace.
Thank you, Doctor. I think definitely rightly put. I think as we rightly said, Der aaye, durust aaye. So I think the pandemic will at least help us leapfrog. I think that journey, and definitely it has helped. But I think my question only is that while you mentioned that your help, it's been effective in terms of customization and improve the dialogue. But is it effective in helping you reach the right doctors with the right content in terms of what it needs to be consumed by them? Because hope this leapfrog has helped you at least do that better.
Sure, yeah, and I wouldn't say we are 100% there as an industry. It's a catch up that we are doing, but on a gradient of from 0 to 10, there is a huge shift, huge transition that we have made than what we were as an industry in the past or pre-pandemic era and where we are today. I guess the future will be somewhere in between. The future is never going to be only physical or only digital. The future is going to be somewhere in between. So only time will tell as to where it settles, what percentage and what things are better done digitally and what things are better done physically. I guess will evolve over a period of time as the world returns to normalcy over a period of time. It's happening in phases, I guess. So, but in terms of have we been able to achieve that level of customization? I guess we've made a huge progress.
I think that's rightly said. I think everybody you talk to today is looking at a hybrid world. Even the entire workforce is looking at a hybrid model. I think we want to be back in office full time. I think we've all realized that we've been able to deliver more successfully through the last 24, 25 months in this environment. So I think that's the way forward. I think that's right, very rightly put. Manish, any additional thoughts which you would like to add in over here in terms of effectiveness?
Yeah, I think just to give the scale of the leapfrogging, I would say, I think the last couple of years, our internal databases have become very, very strong. I would say at this stage, we're able to get millions of impressions of our brands on various digital platforms. And just to give you an example, we had a particular launch for COVID during the last couple of years, and through the digital channels we could reach lakhs of doctors, and that's the kind of reach we could get in the digital times, and in all the technology affords us. I think how many of them read it and all of that, and all that feedback loop was also closed for us in that particular campaign. So at that level, I think the leapfrogging is very, very sizable on the digital side.
Amazing, Manish. Really, really nice to know that. As Doctor, you rightly said, the amount of data we are consuming is huge. And I think if you look at and you speak to anybody, everybody is saying data is the new oil. And we are seeing that story span out with a lot of these new business ventures which are coming out who are thriving on data, be it Cred or the others, right? In terms of their whole business proposition is analyzing data and going out to market. And I think that's what you guys are also focusing on. And Manish, as you rightly said, that the content, who has viewed the content and how much time have they spent on the content. I think all of that data flows back to you. And I think you can use it more effectively in your future marketing spends. So I think that's really interesting. Moving on, I think, Ruchi, I think I just wanted to move to you. Just wanted to understand from you, how are doctors adapting to this digital environment? Is it easy for doctors to use these clinical decision tools, drug reference tools, etc., as part of their day-to-day busy schedules?
Sure, Rajeev. And I think if I have to pick up the conversation from Dr. Gupta and Manish as well, hybrid is a reality. And hybrid in terms of, consuming content, in terms of consuming different aspects of making their practice a lot more stronger and effective is a reality. Having said that, we did see a lot of change that happened during the pandemic. It changed habits, and a lot of practitioners started moving towards adopting digital tools as well. They were genuinely looking for relevant, real-time, updated content in the medical practice. And we've generally seen an openness to telemedicine, to point-of-care solutions, clinical decision support tools. And I think this was genuinely accelerated by the fact that both practitioners as well as patients were open to having digital engagement. So all of this put together did, of course, make an impact. I'll quote a public report which is out there on Google for us to look at, but the CDS market alone is expected to rise to somewhere around 7 to 8 billion by, I think, around 2030 or so. That just speaks of the volumes and the total effort that's going to go into the direction of having clinical decision support tools worldwide. We also saw that doctors were very willing to use these solutions, but they surely were demanding for tools which are easy to use. And at the same time, it allows them to be a lot more productive and, most importantly, treat the patient right. They do look and like to leverage solutions that can give them an evidence-based approach towards a scenario while treating a patient, and extend this to leveraging a drug referencing tool that can avoid any mishaps or owing to drug-to-drug combinations or any existing comorbidities that the patients might have, right? We also saw that doctors started valuing a lot of clinical pathways. What that means is, what are the different drug-to-drug interactions, drug-to-allergy interactions, and drug-to-disease interactions. So when doctors are prescribing medicines, they want to be absolutely sure that whatever they're doing is going to treat the patient in the right manner and not cause any complications. And if there is any confusion, they were very happy to just open up their mobile phones and look at something which can guide them in that direction. And just to prove this point, up to date, which I think Kathy referred some time back, which is a clinical decision support at the time of patient care, where a doctor can just simply open up the app, look at that tool, and provide a point of care solution to the patient then and there by looking at evidence-based references. This was not so big in India almost like 15 years back or so. From there, we have actually come to 30,000 doctors using that in India. That itself showcases that there is an adoption of digital tool. And doctors are almost opening up to make their lives a lot more easy by having it all at the click of a button or so. Major hospitals, you name them, AIMS, PGI, CMC Vellore. We do have these as our customers who are using either an UpToDate or a Lexicom or any other such solution from Wolters Kluwer Kitty, which is kind of telling us that there is a general openness to be experimenting and to be leveraging these digital solutions for a better outcome here. And while COVID accelerated the adoption of digital, I think it's the investment by organizations like ours to ensure that there's a content update that's happening every single day, features which is going to help doctors navigate very well. And this is what is causing doctors to see the value in the product. And hence the usage is also increasing. So this is kind of a combination where the habits formulated and then the organization like ours, Wolters Kluwer, started investing a lot more in the product enhancement also. So combine it all together, and with the openness of the patient to be, treated through these digital tools as well, is kind of, creating that combination where the acceleration on digital adoption is truly happening. Raj.
Yeah, thank you, Ruchi. I think very well put. I think in the earlier days, I think one of the strongest reference points for doctors was knowledge sharing, and probably that happened through these CME programs, which were conducted in conjunction with a lot of these life science companies, I think, which were weekly programs and other things, right? And I think now with such access, I think it's definitely helpful. I think a doctor would always question why is he doing this, or what he should be doing in a particular case, and what are going to be the effects or side effects of any therapeutic, right? And that's where the entire evidence-based content comes into reference. I think Catherine, I think it'll be great to hear from you as well. I think Ruchi's covered quite a bit on that, but I think it would be good to get your perspective as well, because this is definitely the way forward, because we're looking at, and I'm talking about the entire vaccine program which we ran as well, right? The entire significance of the side effects and what it will have, the adverse impact reporting itself was so critically watched across the globe. So I think it will be good to hear from you as well.
Yeah, thank you. Building on what Ruchi said, maybe let me step back and just first define what is evidence-based medicine, because it gets thrown around a lot and I'm not sure we all interpret it the same way. So it's really three things, two of them the major pieces. One is looking at the evidence, meaning research that's been done. What are the patterns? There's enough evidence to say this drug treatment makes more of a difference, or this procedure has a better outcome, or here's more insight on this disease and how you might diagnose it. So it's pulling together that evidence and synthesizing it into something where you don't have to go look at all of the journals. It's also very importantly looking at what are the top practitioners in this area in the world doing, what are their insights, because not only are they, probably keeping up with evidence more than the average person, but they're, in real time on real patients, finding the best practices. And in fact, many hospitals around the world increasingly run their own data-driven experiments or just data gathering on what doctors do to identify what delivers the best outcome. So I think that's an important addition to the published research, which can take quite a long time, really complements it. And then the third element, which, the doctor should obviously be recommending the best practice no matter what, but you do have to take into account the patient, their culture, their preferences. My mother-in-law has some slow growing cancer. She does not want radiation treatment. So they've had to find, other alternatives for her to extend her life as much as possible, right? So that would be an example of that. And in terms of the power of it, think in the past, before this existed, UpToDate was created in 1992 by a doctor named Bud Rose, who realized you have to look in so many places to try to piece this together yourself. It's just not practical. So what doctors would generally do is ask the doctor maybe down the hall, or, that they work with in the hospital. And actually, some research was done later. The evidence shows that's actually, I think, 2 out of 3 times not the correct advice, right? Because we're all, all doctors are struggling to keep up with all of the information. So synthesizing this in one place made it much easier for people to see what the best evidence is, how to diagnose, what else this could be, how to treat. As Ruchi said, products like LexiComp help with the drug dosages and which drug to choose. And a couple of other points I want to add that really, the clinical decision support plus digital makes so valuable. One is we can add new things so much faster. So COVID, great example, very, very quickly after the pandemic broke out, the UpToDate editors and our 6,000 external medical contributors and advisors from around the world were able to put some content together and put it in front of doctors, incredibly quickly. And that, made a difference in how they were able to treat COVID patients. Also, with everything together, it meets multiple needs of the same person. So, for example, we've used technology to create decision trees to help people diagnose what might be causing lower back pain, which is one of those incredibly hard to diagnose issues that's actually quite common. So tools that kind of walk somebody through where it's something they're still learning, right? They're not an expert at, or they don't deal with a lot. But also, for the deep specialist, it goes way into the detail there. If you're learning a specialty, once you learn the specialty, that might be less important, but then you're going to run into unusual situations. Someone, who has diabetes has some other issue, interacting with that maybe as the diabetes specialist, you don't deal with that often, or it's a strange set of symptoms, and you need to figure out what this might be. So it really, when you bring things together in a digital format, it just, to kind of building on the efficiency point made, just helps with so many different use cases, and you don't need to, I love Dr. Vikas's bookshelf there, but you don't need to be pulling those books off the shelf all the time, and it's much more updated.
Very right, Kathleen. I think that's definitely very, very apt, I think, what you say, and very relevant as well. I think the interlinkages between treatment and comorbidities and other elements are also definitely very important in deciding the right line of treatment for a specific patient. So I think the entire decision tree or a reference point, or having those reference to prior studies or anything, will definitely help an HCP in terms of deciding the right path for his patients. So I think, thank you very much. I think moving forward, I think it's probably good to hear from Manish in terms of some of the examples in terms of how you assisting HCPs and enabling them better in today's age in terms of helping them service and address their patient care needs better.
Yeah, I think multiple avenues we as pharma companies are working on. I'm sure, I think all our efforts in terms of complementing the efforts of the doctors. So I think the doctors can spend a lot of time on the prescription, understanding the history, but I think a lot of our efforts are also helping the other parts of disease management, be it diet counseling, lifestyle counseling. Our colleagues in Latin America have worked on a very strong disease management kind of a plan for oncology patients. And I think they ensure a lot of the data flows back to the healthcare providers, so that I think they are in touch with all the various elements and touch points that we have with the patients. The second piece I would say is point of care diagnostics, point of care tools to make the diagnosis identification sharper and quicker. So be it tools, say a test, a uroflowmetry test in urology, or a particular score like an IPSS score that can help, I think, get the diagnosis better. These are some examples of how we are helping doctors get to diagnose and treat the patients in a better manner. I would also say on top of that, I think the content that comes from some of the strong providers like Wolters, Kluwer's, the pharma companies play a bigger role in the dissemination of all of this knowledge through the various platforms, through the various physical and digital touchpoints we have. Because finally, all of us are in the game of changing behaviors based on evidence-based research, right? And I think the change of behaviors sometimes requires multiple hits, right? All of us are adults. We need to be reminded of things many, many times. And some of these evidence-based guidelines and research has to be communicated to folks in different formats, different content, so that I think finally behavior change happens. We're all in this to make sure I think the latest research is finally implemented and used in clinical practice. And that's like the core objective.
Really right, Manish. I think very, very apt, and I think definitely the need of the hour as well. The best care for patient in the right time with adequate confidence, I think definitely is something which is needed for even patient comfort as well. So I think, Doctor, would you like to add in some of the examples your end of what you all are doing at Cipla?
Yeah, I guess pretty much what Manish said. Every therapy, everywhere we saw a huge shift where doctors also started giving a lot of weightage to data. I guess what COVID did was it allowed everybody to rethink. Even there was a strong need from practitioners because the disease was new. So there was no other way to keep yourself updated and keep executing. And just thinking aloud, just a year ago when we was going through a massive COVID wave, HRCT became a test of, and there was shortage of CT scan machines and HRCT as a test. Even a normal layman was ready to get his HRCT to see whether he's okay or not. And then a few months later, nobody even talks about it. that whether it is relevant, it is not relevant. The science was evolving. As with every passing day, newer and newer data was coming out on newer and newer drugs. I remember there was frenzy of various treatments. And I remember the phase when with every passing week, the data on some of those treatments was changing. So I guess even from a practitioner's point of view, the only way they could keep themselves really abreast of what's happening was through the various sources of information. And we did play a very important role in some of the shaping up some of those things and bringing those contemporary research to India as fast as possible. I think the way digital helped was squeezing the timeline. In the earlier days, if you would launch a new therapy, if you would launch a new molecule, and the time it would take for the interiors of the country to really know about it, the lag was quite a bit. What happened with the advent of digital is that those timelines are squeezed. Today, you can introduce a new piece of information, you can introduce a new piece of research at the same time to people, irrespective of whether they are sitting in a metro town or whether they are sitting in the rural part of India or somewhere in between, from these two. So I guess that's another very important shift. So the quality of care which is offered in the towns beyond metros versus the quality of care which is offered in the super specialty or tertiary care centers, that divide is also, I would say, coming down. So the ultimately it's for the benefit of the patient that all these actions or all these initiatives are playing their bit in the whole continuum of medical practice.
Rightly said. I think I know we started with the entire, not last year, but the year before last, I think the entire HCQ position, right? And then I think after some point, after maybe 4 or 5 weeks, HCQ was out of the window. And something
then something else, then something else,
so
then something else.
I think I think it was an evolving journey. I think it was the first time everybody, the entire healthcare professional was dealing with something unseen. So I think definitely that journey, and that's where the likes of you yourself, Catherine, Ruchi, all came into the picture as well, right? Disseminating what was a Lancet study done in some part or other research done in another part, and how is that consolidated and disseminated to, say, companies as well as HCPs, to ensure that they are able to address the need, because accessibility was the biggest challenge. While continuing on this, I want to hear you. I think you've spoken enough and plenty about the digital tools available, but I'm sure there were certain challenges which you all encountered or continue to encounter in this journey, right? It'll be good to hear from you about this, and what are the other opportunities which you all could have as marketers for companies, because I think that is the only avenue you have, given the limitations in terms of marketing code, which we all follow globally.
Yeah, I think, Rajeev, we all started on a journey. I think we're all very excited. Like kids, we got new tools to get to our customers, and we eagerly use them in COVID times. And as we realize, I think a lot of these communications that we send to our customers, only few of them got read, only few of them got attention, only few of them got engagement, right? And that's a reality of the digital marketing and digital knowledge dissemination. And that's, I think, the hard reality that is now in front of us. And all of us have to accept it. And I think now we have to work out, I think, our methodology such that we can get much better engagement with our customers. And which also means, I think, when we try to do this dissemination of knowledge, we're finally trying to change behaviors, right? And I think if we finally measure behavior changes, first of all, I would say we should measure behavior changes. And I think as we try to measure behavior changes, only maybe 10-20% places we will be successful. And that's, I would say, that's the nature of all of these sort of avenues. So I would say that I think my message to the marketeers, the pharma marketers, is first of all, don't lose heart. I think hit rate of 10-20% is a very, very good hit rate in this in the digital world. The second advice would be, I think of all of these as building platforms, not necessarily doing campaigns, right? Campaigns are short-lived. Platforms mean you are at it consistently, you are at it with a lot of perseverance, so that finally behavior change happens. And I'm a big believer of the surround sound. All the work that happens on the digital side has to be complemented by all the efforts that we do on the physical side. Only then I think this will be the surround sound will be much higher, and we'll get the outcomes that we want to drive. And finally, I would say it should be linked to your therapy goals or brand goals. Finally, all of us are driving certain goals in our businesses. So whatever efforts that we are driving, they have to be linked to the goals that we have from our strategic objectives. So I think quite some challenges. And maybe the last one is continue to drive the iterations. And maybe some campaign you did got a click-through rate of 5%. Maybe let's figure out the creative, let's figure out the UI UX to get the click-through rate to 10%, 20%. And that's like the fun of digital marketing, I would say.
Vikas, if you have any additional, which I think is not easy. I think there is no correct seismic that fits all. It's an evolving journey. Digital marketing is all constantly changing, and we need to adapt to the change. So I think some of the challenges and learnings or opportunities which you have seen.
So some of the learnings are, do you have the right capability? I guess, and when I talk of capability, it's in terms of talent, that the right talent that is required, preparing talent for future. You don't change people with the changing market dynamics. What you do is you build those capabilities within the organization. Try and have a very different look, at the talent. In earlier days, any marketeer could have operated just on its own, but now is the time. The interdependence globally, it's any event that happens in very different part of the globe. I don't think any country across the globe is insulated from that event, and so is the case within our functions. The respect for different functions, the roles that our partners play, the role that government plays. I guess that the respect for that across has gone up. So do we have the talent which appreciates and which can bring all of this together and make sure that you have the right approach? Digital is just one piece of your whole I would say chain or of these things, but is it fitting in as a part of the puzzle? And how do you look at it holistically? I guess the need for it to look at the way we used to look at talent, that has changed. The biggest change that is what we used to look for when we used to hire someone in the past versus what we look for now and what we should be looking for in time. I guess that evolution is something which will decide the effectiveness of the outcomes, or that will define who leads, this race. How do we evolve over a period of time?
Thank you, Doctor. I think we've come to an end to this session. I think it's been a very engaging session which we've had. I think very insightful. I think I know certain elements in terms of how we've had a support for the pandemic in terms of the leapfrogging, in terms of using digital today in engagement with HCPs. But I think, as we rightly said, that engagement with HCPs is just not limited to basic interaction. I think it needs to go beyond those engagements, being a reference point for them to enable them to do better patient care from various tools which we've heard from Kathy as well as Ruchi, be it the clinical decision support tool which we've spoken about, or the other tools which Manish you referred to, right, in terms of engagement, and Doctor you referred to. So I think all of those elements are definitely more relevant, and I think they will continue to be relevant as we move into this hybrid environment. Because I think teleconsultation is here to stay. It gained a lot of prevalence in the last 2 years, but it is here to stay because of the various elements and comfort which it has brought to patients as well as HCPs. I think that is definitely here to stay. But Doctor, as you rightly put, the ability to nurture the right talent or repurpose certain talent to ensure that we are able to go down that journey. And as Manish had earlier put down, the PPT, which I said, the people, process, and technology piece, is definitely something which everybody needs to adapt rapidly, including HCPs as well, and just not companies or the marketeers, because it's a two-way street, because the information needs to flow both ways to ensure that we are able to bring the right therapies and address the patient's needs and give them the right care in the timely manner. With that, we will conclude this session. Thank you very much. Hope it was helpful.